Well, good morning and welcome to this webinar, which will allow you to find out more about 3 of the many science roles available in Southland, hopefully inspire young people, particularly young women, to consider science careers. We're delighted today to have with us 3 women working in science careers in Southland. Aparajita Goswami, a process control engineer with New Zealand's Aluminium Smelter at TY with Rio Tinto Group. Catherine Holdsworth, also known as Kate, Regional Process Microbiologist with Fonterra, and Dr. Lisa Pearson, Lead Earth and Environmental Scientist. Thank you very much for coming along today and sharing your career stories with us. Catherine has been with Fonterra for 3 years and previously worked as a research and development microbiologist in the pharmaceutical industry and as a technical account manager with the New Zealand Scientific Lab Testing Service Company. She's a member of the New Zealand Microbiological Society. Catherine received her Bachelor of Science from the University of Delaware in the United States, majoring in biology with a concentration in veterinary medicine and a minor in microbiology. She received her Masters of Science from the University of New South Wales, Australia, majoring in marine biology with a concentration in microbiology. She lives in Gore, working between the Fonterra, Edendale and Stirling sites. Outside of work, she loves getting out and exploring this beautiful part of the world with her partner and her mastiff puppy. She's an avid tramper and will be completing the Routeburn and Milford treks this summer. So Lisa, as we said before, is a lead earth and environmental scientist with over 8 years experience in land and freshwater research and management. She's worked in both the academic and regional council science sectors and in collaboration with research institutes. At Water and Land Science, which is an Invercargill-based environmental consultancy business, Lisa is the lead earth and environmental scientist. She has extensive knowledge and experience in earth processes, soils, nutrition management, water catchment modelling and GIS mapping. Lisa holds a doctorate in philosophy and Masters of Science with first class honours in geochemistry from the University of Waikato. Her academic research focused on lake nutrition dynamics and sediment geochemistry. She also has a Bachelor of Science in Earth Sciences. Aparajita Goswami is a process control engineer with New Zealand's Aluminium Smelter at TY, which is owned by the Rio Tinto Group. After completing her undergraduate and postgraduate degrees, specialising in chemical and materials engineering from the University of Auckland, Aparajita relocated to Invercargill as a graduate process engineer in 2018. Within 6 months, she was promoted to a process control engineering role within the reduction department, which she'll tell us about shortly, where she continues to work on the technical aspects of low carbon, high purity aluminium production. Stepping into her 3rd year in industry, she has begun taking on improvement projects alongside her main role and is gathering the information and work experience she requires to become a chartered professional member of Engineering New Zealand. Aparajita says her work is challenging, dynamic and keeps her on her toes, but is always rewarding and extremely fulfilling. So I'm going to ask each of these women about their roles. So what is your job? What do you do from day to day? And what do you like about your job? And let's start with you. Thank you, Kate.
No worries, thanks for having me. So like you mentioned, Alison, I work for Fonterra. I'm the Regional Process Microbiologist for the Lower South Island. And so I'm part of the Regional Process Technical team. There are about half a dozen of us on the tech team. We've all got sort of specific roles to support site. So for example, we've got the milk powder specialists, cheese process specialists, chemical specialists, things of that nature. And my role is as the microbiologist for the team. So day to day, my job can vary quite a bit. Sometimes it takes the shape of problem solving, sometimes I'm project managing, sometimes I'm assisting with customer inquiries, and every once in a while I get to be involved with something quite cool like bringing a new product to site, which is really interesting. So in a nutshell, I suppose I'd say I'm sort of like a quality consultant to the plants down here. And I think my favorite part about my job is probably just what I've just mentioned. It's just how varied it is. So, some days I'll be at my desk, trending and analyzing data, but other days I'll be out in the factories, walking the product lines, trying to come up with creative solutions to an issue. I do love problem solving, and that's a huge part of my job, which is really cool. I also get to interact with a really large group of people across the business, plant managers, account managers, logistics personnel, research and development scientists, all sort of on a weekly basis. So it's quite an interesting and varied role.
So Lisa, what is your job? What do you do from day to day, and what do you like about your job?
So here at Land and Water Science, my job is very multidisciplinary. It encompasses aspects of hydrology, soil science, chemistry, and maths, mostly to understand why something and how something is occurring in the environment. Like I mentioned in my bio, I use geographical programs such as QGIS to help display results using maps. So people can understand the science and see it a bit more spatially, because a lot of what the processes that we're talking about in my job, especially nutrient management, you can't see it. You can't see it in the water. So being able to use maps and things like that to explain processes really helps people to understand what I do. For example, I'm currently working on a project in the Our Land and Water National Science Challenge, which is building a classification to explain why water quality varies across New Zealand. Other days I might be out in the field taking samples of soil and water for analysis, and then these samples are used to provide advice for land management decisions by farmers or other industries such as waste management, water discharges and things like that. Just like Kate, I love my job because there's always something new, interesting, and I have to problem solve and figure out lots of things.
Thank you very much. So Aparajita, perhaps you'd like to tell us now about your job, what you do from day to day, and what you like about your role. Thanks.
Well, first of all, thank you, Alison and Pat, for having me here. So my job as a process control engineer basically revolves around working with technical specialists on site to help control all of the technical aspects of aluminium smelting, or production as we call it. It's all just a chemical process that we call as reduction. Hence I work in the reduction department. So in the reduction department, we have these things called cells in which we physically make the aluminium. And my role as a chemical engineer or a process control engineer is to try and set up parameters for those cells to produce aluminium, as well as troubleshoot any issues that occur. So sometimes, just like people, cells tend to misbehave and have these things called process excursions when they deviate from what we term as our natural process. And my job is to go out there, try to figure out what's going wrong and how we can nudge that process back into where it sits within our target requirements and specifications. Just like Lisa and Kate have said, my job is very dynamic, it's very varied. So some days I'm in my office crunching data and analyzing it. And some at other times I'm out there on the floor, with the operators, dealing physically with the cells. So no 2 days are the same, and variety can be challenging, but it's always so rewarding and fulfilling. So I love my job from that aspect.
So now I'm going to ask you women about your career journeys. So can you tell me what school you went to? How did you become interested in a science career? What school subjects might have been helpful to you, and why you chose your current career path? So let's start with you. Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks. So I went to high school at John Paul College in Rotorua. And science has always been one of my favourite subjects. So I took all the science subjects. Chemistry, biology were definitely my favourite, less so physics, but I'm glad I did it. Also, a big passion of mine is really getting out into the outdoors with hobbies that were rowing and swimming and hiking and cycling. So I was out in nature, interacting with water, and I really chose a career, I guess, to combine these interests to enable me to really enjoy New Zealand as much as possible, have a career that I could take international as well. And yeah, I think that's what really drove me. The early morning starts rowing on Lake Rotorua got me curious about the lake a bit more.
So you're at school then, were you encouraged into this particular career path or just sciences generally?
Not so much, well, I always was going to choose science. It's in my background. My sisters are both scientists as well, just in different fields. So it's definitely in our blood. I think that's probably what drove my passion.
Thank you. So Aparajita, whereabouts did you go to school?
Well, I'm from Auckland, so I went to Linfield College in Hillsborough in Auckland, and my subjects were calculus, physics and chemistry, economics and English. And in hindsight, now that I think about it, maybe subjects like statistics or graphical design or IT would have also been really good subjects if someone's considering careers in science and engineering. And in terms of getting into engineering, my mum's a chemistry teacher and my dad's a mechanical engineer. So science or STEM fields kind of run in the blood, and my childhood kind of revolved around things like photosynthesis or making DIY sherbet fizz or like welding. So which kind of sounds a little bit sad, but was definitely more awesome as well. And that sort of is why I have a very natural progression towards my career currently as an engineer, because I always wanted to be a very hands-on person, and get stuck into projects and things where I could actually physically see the outcome positively impacting someone around me. And I think engineering really allows me to do that.
Well, thank you very much. And Kate, if you could tell us something about your career journey and how you came to the point you are today, thank you.
Sure. So I went to a high school called George School, which is located just outside of Philadelphia in the United States. And similar to the other girls, I was always interested in maths and sciences, so I took as many sort of science courses as my schedule would allow. For me, that included hydrology, environmental science, chemistry, and physics, along with the math courses. So I went to university straight out of high school. But I was always a wee bit jealous of my friends who took a year off and did some traveling and got some experience in the workforce, because I think it is quite difficult to choose your major and try and outline what you want to do with the rest of your life sort of at 17 or 18. For example, I started at university as a chemical engineering major and studied that for about a year and a half, and then decided I wanted to switch directions. And that's okay too. You don't have to have it all figured out at the beginning. There's always opportunity to change around. Same thing with my career, I suppose. I think I'm still figuring it out, but chose my current job just because of the problem-solving aspect. It's really, really interesting to me. I suppose, again, similar to the other ladies, I was encouraged into science by my family. My father's an engineer, and so we did the same sort of, we projects at home on the weekends and things, just discovering how things worked. It was, definitely encouraged.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm going to start with the Aparajita now. What qualifications do you have? I mentioned them briefly in the bio, but if you could tell us just a little bit more about those qualifications and what they actually mean. And at the moment, in your current role, do you have any on-the-job training or professional development opportunities, and how important is that for your career and for knowing what you want to do for longer in your career or as your career progresses?
So I have a bachelor's in chemical and materials engineering, like I mentioned, and my master's focus more on titanium metallurgy. So the way the degree is structured at Auckland University, the undergrad degree mostly focuses on processes such as, you know, oil and gas or aluminium smelting, or food manufacturing. So I kind of wanted to have the materials aspect of my degree as well, which is why I chose to do my master's, focused on titanium metallurgy. So it was all to do with coming up with how to combine titanium powder with an optimal plastic, or what we call polymeric binder, so that you could use that to make really ductile titanium components for things such as in the medical field, or for airplanes, or phones, or wherever else titanium is used. So that's what my master's focused on, or my 2 degrees. Currently on site, we get loads of opportunities for professional development. So they can vary from practical hands-on things such as forklift training, or working in confined spaces, or working at heights or in elevated platforms, to technical or the more project engineering type ones, which I'm currently doing, which is called a Lean Six Sigma Green Belt training. So that's basically learning how to do project engineering using statistical tools, to confidently claim that what you've done has actually made the impact that you desired. Alongside that, I think our site also has a really great graduate program, like a lot of sites around the country do. And our graduate program got us to go to a conference in Perth, which was very exciting to go and meet other Rio Tinto graduates around the world, and talk about how their sort of mine sites are operating, and the different elements that you have. Iron ore, aluminium, copper, uranium. So it was very, very interesting.
Thank you very much. And what about you, Kate? Can you tell us a little bit more about what your qualifications involved, and about on-the-job training that you have now at Fonterra?
Absolutely. Yep, so like we covered off earlier, I've got a bachelor's in biology and a master's in marine biology, both concentrating in microbiology. So my master's project involved, I'm also an avid scuba diver, by the way, involves looking at a couple different types of seaweed that we found in the harbour in Sydney, and trying to figure out why those seaweeds didn't have the biofouling that some of the other species did. So it was looking at whether there was antimicrobial activity, or what was happening there, and it turned out one of them actually was secreting molecules that block the quorum sensing of the bacteria, basically stop them from talking to each other. So that was sort of what I did at University of New South Wales in Sydney, which was really cool. It allowed me to get out in the field and, you know, do some diving as part of my research, which was quite interesting. I suppose so. My career path has been quite varied. I've worked in research labs, animal hospitals. I've worked for the Australian government, the pharmaceutical industry, and now obviously I'm in the dairy industry. And so I do have that formal qualification in bio, but actually all of my dairy knowledge has been gained with on-the-job training, and training that Fonterra has put me through. So there have been quite a few opportunities when I started with Fonterra to upskill in different processes. Obviously on site here, Edendale's quite a large site. We've got quite a few different processes here to learn. So that took probably 6 months just to get my head around all of the different processes we've got here. But there were quite a number of opportunities to take both in-person and online courses to upskill. So, you know, if you feel like you're interested in entering dairy science or something like that, don't be afraid if you don't have that sort of background. You know, as long as you've got the ambition, I suppose, then you can certainly be upskilled.
That might be a good opportunity, Kate. I think you've got a slide for us about some different science career opportunities in dairy. Would you like to share that with us now?
Yeah, sure, why not? I'll just grab that and share my screen. Here we go. Hopefully that's coming through now.
Can you explain what we're seeing, Kate?
Yes. Yeah. So I've just got on here a couple of pathways that might be of interest. So if you are interested in getting into dairy science but you're not sure that you want to commit to, you know, a full university course, we do have dairy apprenticeship programs. It's 2.5 years. It's quite a long program. It ends up with an NZQA level 4 qualification. So it's a mixture of online learning, but also a lot of hands-on training. We've got a couple of apprentices here at Edendale at the moment who work side by side with some of the guys that are operating the plant. They get to go into the labs, you know, see a real variety of roles, so you can, you know, sort of choose at the end of it what interests you the most. And then we also have the graduate technical program. So this is for people who've completed a 4-year degree in some sort of engineering, food tech, science, obviously micro, or environmental focus. Any of those sorts of fields are quite interesting for Fonterra. And then you go on to complete with this graduate technical program, a Masters in Dairy Science and Technology. It's quite cool because the FidgeTip students get to travel around to a lot of different sites, and again see a really broad range of career opportunities within Fonterra. And then when you've finished up your program, you're really well qualified for some of the more coveted positions in the company. So it's quite a good opportunity, really. Yep. So just got a couple of email addresses down there if anyone's interested in finding out a bit more information, or Fonterra.com has all of this on it as well. It's got a whole host of information about careers.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Just
now we'll go to, yes, thank you. Now we'll go to Lisa just to explain a little bit more about what your qualifications involved and about what happens now with your upskilling and on-the-job training. Thanks.
So I studied at the University of Waikato in Hamilton, where I did my Bachelor of Science with a major in Earth Sciences and a minor in Chemistry. Following that, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do, and I was lucky enough to get a scholarship from the university to do some master's research. And that led me on to studying the sediment of Lake Rotorua, with the aim to to help understand why the lake has sometimes the poor water quality. And when you're looking at management options for the lake, if you don't consider the role that the lake has on its own water quality, sometimes the decisions that you make for the land aren't necessarily going to have the desired effect ultimately in the lake. So this really actually led me on to my PhD research as well, where I studied a much wider range of lakes and looked at what are the differences between them, what's controlling the nutrient cycling in the lakes. And so when you're looking at the land management, you can actually start making better decisions on the land and control what goes into the lakes with a lot more understanding about the impact that it will ultimately have. Most of my work is the same kind of thing, really working out new ways to do things, understanding why things are happening. So I'm constantly learning new skills. I have a lot of time where I have to problem solve or teach myself to learn things, but we also do a lot of collaboration with people in different organisations. The work that we do ranges from informing government, regional councils, it might be individual farmers or industries such as like meatworks and things like that around what to do with waste. So that there's a lot of on-the-job learning to learn about each of these industries and make sure that our recommendations are specific and targeted so they actually result in really practical outcomes.
Well, thank you very much. Now we move on to, sometimes in the work that we do as Southland Youth Futures, it's we introduce young people to careers and people that are working in particular careers, but sometimes it's quite a leap, to think as a year 12 or 13 student, can you actually aspire to achieving that career that you might dream of? So just wondering now, what advice would you give young people, and not just women, but young people in general, who are thinking about a science career? So can I start with you, please, Kate?
Of course. I suppose I would recommend undertaking any sort of volunteer opportunities that come up, or internships if possible. So I believe DOC has a volunteer program. When I was younger, I volunteered with my local watershed association, so I was just taking water samples and helping test them. That was quite interesting, got me quite interested in environmental sciences. So yeah, any sort of opportunity to even just shadow people in different industries, get a feel for what the careers might look like, will definitely help you sort of, well, A, set yourself apart, I suppose, with a little bit of experience, but also B, give yourself you know, a little bit more information to base your decisions on when you're choosing what courses you want to study at uni, if you choose to go to uni. Yeah, that would be my advice.
Thank you very much. How about you, Lisa? What's your advice?
I really think you need to follow what you're passionate about, and that way you really enjoy what you do, and work doesn't feel like work. And really, just like what Kate said, get out and talk to people, and talk to people in the industry, so you have a bit of an idea what kind of skills and things like that they're looking for before you even make decisions about university, and yeah, other courses.
Thank you. Aparajita, I think you're not so far out of school yourself. Can you tell us how old you are, please?
Yeah, I'm 27 years old at the moment.
Thank you very much. So what's your advice to young people, given that you know, you're not so far away from year 12 or 13 when you were making very important decisions about the rest of your life?
I think I'd like to echo the other ladies in terms of answering this question. Yes, you definitely need to go talk to people who are in the industries that you're interested in, take up any voluntary or internship opportunities that you see for yourself, sometimes maybe even cold calling some companies to try and create those opportunities for yourself. And I think to the school students who are more so focused on just their exams and studying for tests at the moment, yes, it is important to focus on the content of your subjects, but it's also really important to focus on your whole holistic approach to those subjects and why it is that you've got to question why it is you're passionate about those subjects, and how you're preparing for them, because at the end of the day, engineering companies are focused on not just hiring talent, but hiring a well-rounded individual. So actually, just like Kate and Lisa, I do go rowing at the Riverton Club, and I do scuba diving. So water or like things to do with being out there always interested in me. And that was something that the company stated as being interesting when they were hiring me. So focus on being a well-rounded individual, create opportunities for yourself by talking to or cold calling companies, and focus on things around your just around your school subjects.
That's great. Southland Youth Futures, we're a career exploration program that operates through Great South, the Southland Regional Development Agency, and that's what we're all about, is trying to connect young people with people and careers across a whole vast range of what's available in Southland. So we have taken groups of young people to Fonterra, which is really, really interesting, and we've brought young people down to the smelter as well. And I think we might have a photograph of you with a young person, not from one of our tours, but you might be able to tell us a little bit more about this photo of Aparajita.
So if you can see the photo, I'm standing here on the left-hand side in my full PPE, which involves a hard hat, a respirator, a visor, and gloves. And on the right-hand side, you can see a schoolgirl who came in as a visitor, hence the white visitor hard hat. And I sort of took her around site, walking her through the whole process, kind of opening some of those reduction cells that I was talking about, seeing the aluminium being produced, sort of bubbling away, because those reduction cells are about 960 degrees centigrade. So it was really exciting for her to see that. And we just thought we should probably take a picture in our PPE because you can barely see us as compared to an actual photo. So yeah, that's just the quick story behind that.
Thank you. So yeah, I find for Southland Youth Futures, I get a great delight personally out of being able to show young people places and introduce them to people that might just help them spark an idea or a career. So thank you very much to you all today for being part of this webinar, to Kate, to Lisa and Aparajita. We do value you giving up your time, and we would really like to wish you all the best for whatever comes next for you. And if we get some feedback from this, I'm sure that you'll be happy to talk to some of the young people that are interested in science careers. So thank you again for your time, and have a good morning.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Alison.